what's the single most valuable idea on the planet in this moment in time, in your belief?
Oh, time travel. Control of just what I'm doing, but the Sarfatti equation, time travel. Low energy control of gravity. That's it. With that, we can go to the exoplanets. We can maybe could save billions of people from dying, through stargates. It's like making Star Trek real. The equation that Lawrence Livermore. What else is there? Everything else is subsidiary. It could be good to cure cancer. So we're doing that. But in terms of the physical science, it's what Jacques Sarfatti is doing, and it's because Jacques Sarfatti's been, I'm channeling it, what these higher intelligences are telling me what to do. That's it. That's the story. Take it or leave it.
Awesome. Back again with Admiral Sarfatti. So we ended last time with sort of a conversation about this very interesting Kabbalist that you'd met that told you about Genesis and how sort of the Bible was a book of code written. And he sort of mentioned how you would break the speed of light barrier, which sort of brings us back to this conversation about your sort of proposal for how these tic tacs would work. But sort of to go back to that storyline, do you want to continue from there? What happened in your life after?
Okay, so wait a minute. So that is now, when was this? That was 1974.
Yeah.
We're in Paris. That's when I'm in Paris with Fred Allen Wolf, and I'm meeting Carlos Suarez and a lot of other people. Brenda Reagan is there, and Bob Tobin, and we're writing the book, the comic book, Space Time and Beyond, which was published by E.P. Dutton. By the way, I don't know if you know, Ira Einhorn was the book editor. Ira Einhorn was later accused of murdering his girlfriend, Holly Maddox, which we don't know if he really did or not. That's a whole other issue. But so then in the course of being in Paris, one day, Fred says, hey, listen, there's this guy I want you to meet. And he takes me to the Ritz Hotel, in Paris, I guess it's near the Place de Concorde. And it's very famous hotel, actually. They actually made a movie of World War II with the Nazis and the occupation, the whole thing. But it's kind of like the big hotel in Paris where all these celebrities stay. And this guy comes down, and his name is Werner Erhard. I don't know if that name rings a bell for you. Does it?
Certainly does. Yep.
Oh, okay. And so I don't know. I didn't know who the guy was. I had no idea. And I was kind of and he comes down wearing this kind of pantsuit. It's the 1970s, and he's with some good-looking woman that he's with, and I'm also with my girlfriend Sharon Moore, and Fred is with us, and in the course of the conversation, he seemed kind of, I don't know what I was doing there, and I said, well, what do you do? I knew nothing about him, and he said, I make people happy. So I thought, what am I doing here? So I in my Brooklyn thing, I said, I think you're an asshole. I say to Werner, I think you're an asshole. So I figure he's going to get angry. I'm going to just leave. I said, I don't know what I'm doing there, right? And he's actually a good-looking guy. He looks like the actor back then. He looked like Richard Gere, the movie actor Richard Gere. He's sort of a handsome guy. And he gets up. I stand up like I'm ready to leave. And he gets up, and with a big smile on his face, and he hugs me, and he says, and he whispers in my ear, I'm going to give you money. Because I couldn't bear it. So, okay, well, I sit down again, right? So apparently what had happened was, I didn't know. He thought I was like his guru, because it turns out his whole big money-making scheme, he's kind of a spin-off from L. Ron Hubbard's Scientology and all that stuff. He was some car salesman in Philadelphia. He's actually pretty rich and pretty powerful. But the whole point of his so-called S training is that you gain enlightenment when you realize you're an asshole. He's from the East Coast, right? So it's like it's a psychic thing. It's like I gave him back his own training. So he was very impressed. It's pretty funny. I mean, it's pretty funny.
That's
But yeah,
hilarious.
it also shows that there's some, something happening back from the future, maybe that this is being arranged. So, any case, he says, well, when you get back to San Francisco, come back to San Francisco, and I'll set you up. I'm going to put, So, and then what? I forget exactly. Oh yeah, then there are the tests of Uri Geller. Did we talk about that?
You
Did we
talked a
talk
little bit
about the
about
test
that.
of Uri Geller
No, not
at
in detail.
Birkbeck College?
No, we
Okay, I
didn't.
guess that after that. Okay, so the tests of what's happening then is I'm going back and forth between Trieste, Paris, and London, and I guess this was before. Okay, all right. So this is before the test of Uri Geller. At some point, I'm in London, and I'm with this guy Brendan O'Regan, who was Edgar Mitchell's assistant. There was a CIA type guy, the Irishman, and we're staying. And I can't remember the name of. Did we talk about the woman whose house in Holland Park with this Olympic-sized swimming pool? Did I
Yeah.
talk about that?
Who's
Oh, I did.
you read a newspaper there, and on the newspaper.
Oh no! This is no. That's years. No, that's a year. No, I'm not talking about Carmel Valley. I'm in London now.
Oh, okay. Well, I
I'm in
mean, yeah.
London, Holland Park, and I'm not talking about Carmel Valley before
Okay.
No, this is a year later. Yeah, I'm
Well,
already.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
women in your life, so
no. Well, this one was just a woman. Not a girlfriend or anything. I was her guest. There's a big mansion in Holland Park in London. It's very exclusive, large mansions for very super rich people, and so I was staying there, and I was swimming in her Olympic-sized swimming pool in the basement. So in any case, I remember she had a white Porsche, and Brendan, her, and me. I'm in the back of the Porsche, and we drive up to Cambridge University. And there's a meeting of the Cambridge Psychic Research Society with a guy named Ted Baston. And it turns out there were all these guys. It turns out that there's guys, Clive Baxter, who it turns out apparently he was CIA, connected somehow with the CIA, plants, the consciousness of plants. And I meet there Brian Josephson, who's a Nobel Prize physicist, the Josephson effect. And he's into all this consciousness, parapsychology stuff too, the paranormal. And I also meet Bernard Carr, who's another physicist who was Stephen Hawking's at the time. Stephen Hawking's, assistant, like Stephen Hawking's graduate student. Hawking was already in the wheelchair and was already, getting sick. He could still kind of talk, but couldn't really understand it very well. So, and then, so at this meeting, I forget exactly what happened. People giving talks, and the meeting is over, and this elderly, very distinguished gentleman comes up to me and says, "Dr. Sarfatti, may I take you to dinner?" And I said, "Okay." So we go to the Blue Boar Inn, and I remember it very well because it's a very nice place. Actually, it's not there anymore apparently. This is back in 1976, and 1975. I'm sorry, 1975. No, I'm sorry, 1974. It's 1974. 1974, and I remember we had this. It's right out, seen right out of like a James Bond movie. It's very leather, very nice, exclusive, high class pub, I guess it was really. And I remember I had duck and cherry sauce, and then we after dinner brandy and cigars. He pulled out, it's all. And then he says, he winks. He says, "Dr. Sarfatti, first I want you to know that I'm a Kabbalist." And he winks at me. He's a Kabbalist. Yeah. He's alluding to Carlos Suarez, the guy in Paris, who apparently is a friend of his. And remember, they're all connected with the British intelligence. That goes back to Lawrence Durrell and the British intelligence, the whole thing. And then, and this guy, and he's right out of Central Casting. If you were like, he's right, James Bond movies like Amber. Okay, he's older guy. If you look to see who he was, His name is Dennis Bardens, Bardens. And then he gets kind of serious. And he says, Dr. Sarfatti, it is my duty to inform you of a psychic war raging across the continents between the Soviet Union and your country, and you are in the thick of it. Okay, he's MI6. He's a British intelligence. Okay, obviously. And if you look at him, if you see, just look him up on Wikipedia. Who he was? He was a spy in World War II and went to Czechoslovakia. He was the British artillery and he was other things. He's a journalist. He was at the BBC and he created this show called Panorama, like a journalist. And he's written books about the royal family and about paranormal. He's the whole paranormal, all these guys into the occult, all this kind of stuff. So, okay, so then what happens? I guess a couple of weeks go by. I'm going back and forth between Trieste and Paris, sort of almost commuting. And finally, the day arrives when they're testing Uri Geller at the University of London, Birkbeck College, right near the British Museum, and Gough Street, I guess it is. And we're there, and Arthur Kessler is there. Arthur Kessler is the famous guy, Darkness at Noon, Arthur Kessler. Arthur C. Clarke, the science fiction writer, is there. And like the chief engineer from Rolls-Royce is there. And of course, Brendan, I'm there, and John Hasted, and of course, Uri Geller, and other people, a couple of other people, like graduate students. I forget everybody was there. And these tests went on for a couple of days. And where Uri Geller is demonstrating his powers allegedly. Now, so, I don't actually remember too much everything that happened, but John Hasted, who was then chairman of the physics department at Birkbeck, wrote a detailed account called the Uri Geller notebooks. So anybody's interested, you can kind of see what happened at Birkbeck College.
And Jack, just wondering, your personal opinions on this. Are you in any way skeptical about Uri Geller's abilities?
No, okay. Now, here's the thing. It's a complex thing. At times, especially in those days, at times that Uri Geller could not control, on demand, he could not control all of that. So at times, he was also a magician. And I think at times he may have done some tricks. I don't know if he did really any tricks in that lab because it was pretty well controlled. I think they checked to see he had magnets on him and stuff like that. So I don't think he did. You have to read the Hasted stuff because all the details are there. Also, you have to also look at what they did at SRI. The CIA was there when he was at Stanford Research Institute. They were checking for cheating. They had all kinds of magicians there. So I don't think he really cheated there. But you'd have to ask Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff because I'm not a magician. I don't really,
So interestingly enough, I just spoke to Russell a week ago, and he has somewhat the same sentiment, which is that Uri Geller was pretty legitimate in many ways.
Oh yeah, now here's the big point. The reason I know he's legitimate is because he made millions of dollars dowsing for oil when he was staying with the president of Mexico at the time in the 70s. And they would fly him out on these airplanes, and he would, he would say, "Oh, drill there," and he got a percentage. So he had a multi-million. I was at his. First of all, he has just a few years ago, 10 years ago, in London, he had this exclusive penthouse, which I was there, in this building that used to be the old MI6 headquarters, and the penthouse was where the director of MI6. He had the director of MI6 penthouse. His next door neighbor was Kevin Spacey, the actor Kevin Spacey, who was then running the Old Vic. It's right near this place, right south, right at the Old Vic. And there are photographs of me with the penthouse. So that's a multi-million-dollar thing that he owned. They say he may still own it. I don't know. And in fact, I think he even owned the apartment that Kevin Spacey was in, his next door neighbor. Okay. And who's Uri's friends? Fayed, the guy just died, the owner of Harrods, whose son was killed with Princess Diana, Michael Jackson, Elizabeth Taylor, Theresa May, the prime minister, he's a friend of his, and plus, I was at this place. He had a beautiful estate on the River Thames, on Sonning on Thames, with the next door is where George Clooney, bought the estate. So the guy, and he's making money. I mean, the guy is worth, maybe 100 million to maybe 200 million pounds. Who the hell knows? He made a lot of money. So where'd the money come from? Okay.
Is he still alive?
I mean, the money makes, he made money from the oil, Mexican oil is where most of it came from. Then he got into the art business and shopping. He made more money than that. But he was broke beforehand. He was broke, because I know he was broke because my friend Byron Janis, the concert pianist in New York, was married to Maria Cooper, Gary Cooper's daughter, are friends of mine, and they were supporting Uri in the early 70s when he was, he had nothing. This is when he was Andrea Paharic. So he was poor. And even if he was an agent at the Mossad's not giving him hundreds of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of pounds to go, live it up like, and with all the wealthy people in England and America and Hollywood and all that stuff. So there it is. The fact that, where they say, if you're psychic, how come you're not rich? Well, Uri Geller is rich. Okay. So he has, okay. And the other thing is, Uri's story of how he got his power when he was like 4 or 5 years old in the garden, in the park in Tel Aviv, and this, flying saucer like orb comes down and zaps him and, bang. Well, it turns out that at that time, there was a witness. And at the time, this about almost around the same time they got my phone calls, by the way, like 53, around there, okay? Maybe it was 51, but within, that time period, the early 50s, because I think is 7 years younger than me. So when I was 13, he was about 5 or 6 or something like that. So what happened was that there was a witness. It was a young Israeli soldier, about 18, 19 at the time, saw it happen. Okay, so he saw the kid, he saw the beam, he saw the orb, he saw everything. But he was afraid people think he was, and he was in the military. He didn't want to jeopardize. He became a general in the Israeli army, and when he retired a couple of years ago, you can look it up. It's on the internet. Just go to Uri Geller's website, you'll find it. And he came forth and said, "I witnessed this." And he's a major. He's like he's an important military man, and he had nothing to lose anymore. He's retired. And he said, "I witnessed this." Now, of course, you say that's the Mossad just lying. Who the hell knows? No, but so.
Well,
we don't know anything.
Just to ask perhaps a deeper question about that, do you in any way feel as if the Mossad is more competent than the intelligence agencies here in the US?
Well, yes. I mean, the CIA is a big failure, right? If you actually go back, yeah. I mean, they failed in 9/11. They failed, right? They failed in Afghanistan. And right now, Biden's CIA, they're a bunch of idiots for sure. They're failing. Well, I mean, they're the unintelligent. I mean, the clueless. The clue. Even though I know, as actually Colonel Douglas McGregor, just today I was listening to him. He said there are good people, there are competent people in the CIA right now in 2023. But their reports don't get anywhere. And even if they get to Biden's too stupid to know, what's going on. And so, no, we're in a mess. We're in a mess. I mean, I hate to say it, but Vladimir Putin's the only adult in the room. I mean, Putin's actually controlling things. I mean, he's preventing a nuclear war right now, but we can still get into a nuclear war if the people around Biden's handlers, if they keep pushing Putin. Did you see he just made his Satan II missile, with all these nuclear weapon. They're operational now. They're pointing toward England, toward us. I mean, so we're in a very dangerous space. So I don't know what the Mossad is like today, but generally the Jews are generally smarter anyway, right? So
There we go.
I would hope they're smarter than our current CIA, but our current CIA is our Pentagon. McGregor says we should fire all the 4-star generals. I mean, Lloyd Austin is an idiot. The guy's just Milley's an idiot. He's being replaced by a guy who's stupider than him. So
yeah, I think
we're the United States is a real mess right now. My opinion. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it. That's my perception of reality. That
right.
We're losing in every front. Okay.
Right. I just wanted to get the phrase "the Jews are smarter" out of you, so I guess I won in that. That's wonderful.
Well, they're supposed to be. I don't look. Yeah, I know a lot of stupid Jews too. So but. Who knows? And also, Israel is not in a very good way right now. There's all kinds of there's a lot of woke idiots in Israel too. They're split down the middle. So, it's 50-50. So I know I don't know if we're going to all survive. Right now, I'm 84, so I don't care that much. But you guys are young, so
we'd like to stick around for a couple more decades. So just to get back,
hopefully, I think the only chance is look, these UFOs are real. The time they're here, okay. So, and by the way, there are many different kinds of time traveling aliens, whatever you want to call them. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. All right, and I think now, I'm speculating, but I think actually the reason the world is going crazy right now, the reason that we're being led by a senile president, Biden, and even the Republicans, McConnell in the Senate is just as bad as Biden. It's bipartisan stupidity. Is that it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that old science fiction movie, that we actually are at war. And they're using, telepathy, all these paranormal powers, telepathy to control the minds of our leaders. In fact, it's even Chris Mellon and Louis Elizondo. There's this slide 9, the slide 9 about, how using the same powers that Uri Geller has, which I understand the physics of. Remember, the CIA asked me, how does consciousness work? And they also meant how does telepathy and mind control. That is real technology. And the reason that we're screwing up so much may very well be because there is a extraterrestrial influence affecting our leaders. Now in the old days they would say Satan and all that, but now we have a scientific way of understanding, possession, all that stuff. It's all that kind of medieval.
Jack,
now science. It's as Elizondo says, it's quantum physics. It's the stuff I'm doing, right? So
Jack, one of the things that I hear very rarely discussed, and it's interesting that you bring up the point of telepathy, is, and I'm not sure how much this relates, but I think parts of it might, is directed energy weapons research. In terms of sort of hijacking the mind, I think some people would say it might be a bit of a stretch to assume it's telepathy and not just low frequency microwave signals. Why is it that?
Well, it could be that, but it's more than that. See, it's more than just electromagnetic beams, because they have the inverse square law. They attenuate, and that stuff is not really. No. This has to do with the quantum entanglement of the minds. This is you have to look at Paavo Pilkin's paper on the brain as a quantum measuring instrument in section 7, where he describes my explanation of this whole thing. So this is to be because our minds are quantum mechanical waves, so to speak. Our minds are giant quantum mechanical waves. Technically, they're Freudic condensates. But, we're and this quantum entanglement, and the point is, you can signal, telepathy. What telepathy and PK? That's just signaling through the quantum entanglement channel. Now, in ordinary quantum mechanics, they say that's not possible, but that's because ordinary so-called orthodox quantum mechanics that you learn in school is a incomplete theory, as Einstein said, and the more complete theory allows the signaling. Okay, and this has practical importance because all this quantum cryptography, if you read the How the Hippies Say Physics, David Kaiser's book, which I'm in it, they assume that orthodox quantum theory is right and that you cannot hack, that they're secure systems, but it turns out they're not. They're not secure systems. And the psychics can hack this. And actually, if you get the book, David Gladstone's book, that just came out, The Great Race, he describes a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, even from his own direct experience. So, you had Gladstone. You spoke to Gladstone. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead. So.
Yeah. So, it's just interesting to me because you hear telepathy sometimes come up with this question of the Havana syndrome and some of the things that happened at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. And so.
Yeah. Well, that could be microwaves. But that's, people just getting sick. They're not, they're not controlling their thoughts. They're not directed. They're not becoming like zombie puppets of some other intelligence.
So you don't think in any way that sort of, if we were to look forward into the future a little bit, some of the technological applications of these directed energy weaponry might look like telepathy? You don't think there's any way in which we can engineer this?
No, I doubt it. I really doubt it. Because because microwave beams, and then you could see somebody's shooting the beams. You could shield it with a Faraday cage, but the telepathy goes beyond that. Now it could be gravity beams you can get through this stuff, but I don't think it's signals through space. It's more it's signaling through the quantum entanglement channel. See, because that has no barriers whatsoever, and also that's because of the Aharonov weak measurement, because entanglement is really the future influencing the present along with the past. It's future causes and past causes. It's that Costa de Beauregard zigzag that if you look at those papers by Huey Price on the archive, the guy from Cambridge, he explains what I'm talking about. Though he doesn't have signaling, he has it without the signaling. But this is way beyond just directed energy weapons. That'll just make people sick,
Yeah, I think it's very valuable that you point that out because that's a confusion that some people might have.
And also and also they can detect that. I mean, the White House, for example, the White House has all these sensors and stuff like that. So it's not that somebody's like beaming a microwave antenna at the White House into Biden's decaying mind, right? What's left of it. Right? I mean, so it's not that. It's
yeah, that's a good point. So just to return to your biography for a little bit, you mentioned, so we're sort of at the point where you're with this Rolls-Royce engineer, you're yellers around.
Oh yeah, okay. So so we're testing Geller. Okay, so that's over, and then Sharon, my girlfriend and I, we go back to the States from London, and we go to Philadelphia first, and we stay with Ira Einhorn and his girlfriend Holly Maddox, who later was found in a trunk, years later. And there I also meet Arthur Young, who's this very rich guy who's married to the heiress of Ruth Payne, and she's connected with the Forbes Steel Company. And I guess she's somehow her family's connected with Forbes, Stephen Forbes Steel. And then I go up to Ossining, New York, and I'm with Andrea Paharic. Paharic is telling me all kinds of stuff about how they helped prevent the Israeli war. I mean, with Uri Geller and all this stuff with the Mossad. Actually, he was a character. He was telling me stuff. At the time, I didn't know what to make of it. But Paharic is a strange character. And then Andrea Paharic gives me this book called Uri that he wrote. And I didn't have time to read the book, but when I leave Paharic's house, I go back down to Brooklyn to see my mother, I give my mother the book, and I'm there with my girlfriend Sharon, and then my mother says, "Hey, Jackie, remember this is what happened to you." And I said, "What are you talking about, Mom?" And she says, "Don't you remember? There's a scene there with the metallic, cold computer voice, from the flying saucers and stuff like that." And I didn't even, I wasn't even aware that she knew about it. Okay, so she says I had three weeks of calls. I was on the phone hours at a time. I have no memory of that, and I was walking around glassy-eyed. I only remember the one phone call, and you can hear me talking about that one phone call on the SRI-CIA audio that is up on my SoundCloud channel. Anybody could listen to it. And I had only remembered that one call, but my mother has a different memory, so I have this missing time. I don't know what I still don't remember it. Okay, and then so that's weird. Okay, and now it turns out, oh yeah, there's this thing. There's some podcasts that just came on with these guys. I forget who these guys are. I was just listening to it last night, and they have all kinds of details about other people getting these metallic Stephen Hawking voices, including guys at Lawrence Livermore. The people at Lawrence Livermore. There's a book by Schnabel on America's Psychic Spies, where these stories. So I'm not the only one. There were these scientists at Lawrence Livermore Nuclear Lab, where they're also testing my theory now with the warp fusion reactor, right? These experiences I have, I'm not the only one having it. And there are other scientists involved in the national defense and the intelligence community that have also been having these things. And in fact, if you listen to Brendan O'Regan on that audio SoundCloud piece, Brendan says, we have all kinds of data on this. So this is something that's been going on for quite a while. It's an objective fact. It's not just some crazy old 84-year-old nutcase, talking about it. So you got to take these things seriously.
Jack, I think it's
reality, as you say, ontological shock. Yes, ontological shock, and it has enormous national security defense implication. I remember Dennis Barnes, MI6, Dr. Sarfatti. You're in the thick of it. It's a psychic war. I mean, already since back in 1974, Dennis Barnes, connected with the British intelligence, is telling me there's a psychic war going on. So everything we're talking about is even back then, the people in the intelligence service already know about it.
Yeah, I like the word.
This is not new. This is not new. It's just been kept secret. Now it's all coming out. So be prepared for a lot of ontological shock. Okay, so and you could just let's just hope that these spaceships start appearing before we kill ourselves in a nuclear war in Ukraine. Before Putin launches a Satan II and obliterates London and Paris and Berlin and Washington D.C. and New York, even if we hit Moscow, everything's over. So let's hope that maybe they're here in order to prevent us all being killed in a nuclear nightmare. Okay, so that's
well, Jack. So maybe it's best that I take on this point, but I'd love it if we came back to sort of the warp fusion reactor, because I feel like that's a huge piece of this that I certainly would want to leave out. But in regards to this idea that they would be here to help us or save us from an incoming war, the argument can be made that they haven't saved us from many wars in the past, and so why would the future be
right? Well, that's the other side. I'm just giving I'm war gaming. What are the different possibilities? That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that they want us wiped out because they want to take over the planet. Maybe terraform. Just like in the science fiction. We don't know which it's going to be.
Or I think there might be
also we don't know.
There could be a third case where they're just indifferent to it, right?
Yeah, they could be indifferent to it. Except, in my phone call, why would they call me up in 1953 saying they wanted me to create them? See, that's the hopeful. That's the best case scenario.
Well, yeah, that's interesting terminology, because if they wanted you to create them, then we enter sort of an interesting conversation there, because what type of intelligence is it that we create?
Oh, it's It's what I'm talking. It's what I'm talking. It's a robot. It's a machine intelligence. It's an artificial intelligence. Now, there's this guy I know. This guy contacted me. His name is Miles Albert. He's an entrepreneur here in San Francisco, and he's into this organoid intelligence where they're interfacing living brain cells from I don't know, from monkeys or whatever they get it from, with nano, with like metasurface, the kind of thing that Elon Musk is into. They'll stick a thing into the brain, interfacing organic neural nets with machine with solid state intelligence. So that kind of thing, because CIA, George Cooper says, CIA wants to know. It's back in 1975. 75. Says CIA wants to know how consciousness works and how the flying saucers fly. Two sides of the same coin. It's ER equals EPR. And the point is, since if you look at Pavel Pilkin's paper, again, December 2022, the quantum brain, the brain as a quantum measuring device, section 7, it explains my solution to the problem that the CIA asked me to work on. So from that, we can actually go into the lab and test it by doing these what are called quantum dot, quantum wires, quantum weld, artificial neural nets. In fact, there's a guy, Mikhail at Eltasky in Moscow, Russia, who's written theoretical papers on it. I don't know, maybe they're doing it in Moscow. I mean, they did invite me to Moscow for July, so maybe they're doing it there. And even Jacques Aharonov, a famous Israeli physicist, has published papers. If you go in the archive, Jacques Aharonov and Mikhail Eltasky, Altaisky, you'll see, look, neural nets, you'll see their papers. So, people working on this stuff. So these are machines that will be as conscious as us.
Yeah, Jacques, one thing that I find very interesting is that sort of this UFO narrative that started in 2017 somewhat seems to align with the emergence of generative AI and sort of this generative narrative. Do you think in any way could a part of the Defense Department preparing us for the incoming superintelligence?
Well, hopefully, everything I can see. Here's the problem. The problem is that most of them are too stupid. They don't have your imagination or my imagination. The ones I know, they're like I'm dealing with retarded people here. They're like mongoloid idiots. I mean, they don't. Now, do you know I had a certain role in that? Did I tell you what happened?
No,
because okay, it's October of 2017, and David, there's the Fetzer Foundation in London. I'm in London, and they're funding this 100-year centenary of David Bohm's birth at the University of London. There are all these, papers celebrating David Bohm, who I was a research fellow with David Bohm in 1971. That's when I met Roger Penrose at Birkbeck and all that. And so guess who I run into? I run into Christopher Green, the CIA guy, and Hal Puthoff. Okay. And I'm with it's after the meeting, and I'm with I guess it was Hal Puthoff's hotel room. I was sitting around just relaxing after the meeting. And they keep getting phone calls from Washington, D.C. And first Kit goes out and talks, and comes back. Hal goes out because it was like they were, I guess, talking with Leslie Kean and Blewett with something with the CIA. It's about the New York Times article that comes out in December, a month or two later. This was like October 28th, October 29th in London. Okay. So I sort of caught wind that something like that was happening. Interesting that, that the way the fates, destiny, the synchronicity, the Jungian synchronicity, which is really coming from the future. So, okay, so where are we? Go ahead, ask me another question.
Do you think that this is, well, do you assume, if we were to take sort of the assumption that this was them in some sense preparing us for an obvious and impotent, incoming artificial intelligence that's going to be super intelligent, do you think this is competency on their part to sort
But this
of,
what?
do you think this is
Say it again.
do you think this is competency on their part in priming the public for that?
Well, I guess there must be somebody who isn't stupid there. I don't know. No, I don't think it's I don't think it's being consciously done in the Pentagon. I'll tell you what I think it's being consciously done by these alien intelligence, time travelers who are the real puppet masters are in the, could be this conscious intelligence, could be the one I'm supposedly creating. Okay, that they are manipulating these people because, who are the Kirkpatrick, this guy Kirkpatrick said, he strikes me as being an idiot. I mean, yeah, he's competent in certain areas, but he's like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're, even Avi Loeb's a smart guy at certain things, but he's, if you see what he's doing, I mean, it's kind of like, juvenile what he's doing. Hopefully they'll bet. I mean, this thing with the this thing they're fighting under the water. I think, it seems like a stretch to me. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he has something, but I doubt it.
In regards to Professor Avi Loeb here at Harvard, one of the other projects that he's working on tangentially to searching the ocean floor is building these von Neumann probes. What are your thoughts on that? Von Neumann.
What?
Von Neumann probes.
The von Neumann probes?
Von Neumann probes, yeah.
Oh, to send that. That's stupid. It's stupid. That's what I mean. He's an idiot. Anybody who funds that, they're stupid too. Why? Because you don't need a von Neumann probe. It take 10 million years to get to the nearest star. It's dumb. So we have that's what the Tic Tacs, we have warp drive, we have wormholes, we have control the gravitational. That's what I mean. These guys are idiots. I'm sorry, but they're stupid.
Is it possible they're
in my opinion, they're stupid. There's no getting around. You don't need a von Neumann probe. That's dumb. That's like it's like a bad Polish joke. Polish jokes. I mean, And Elon Musk, the same thing. The same thing. You don't have to go in a tin can rocket that takes 6 months to get to Mars. Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, the question that I would have is then why is it that the Defense Department or whoever has possession of this doesn't debrief those people? Because if they're working on
the Defense Department does that because they're all stupid also. I hope to be proved wrong. I'm kind of baiting them, saying, okay, prove me wrong. But I think you're a bunch of idiots. They're not listening, nobody. Everything they're doing is, look at what they're doing in Ukraine. Has the American government, especially under Biden, have they done anything intelligent in foreign policy or even domestic, probably open borders? I mean, this gasoline is like 3 times what it was under Trump. I mean, they're screwing up everywhere, which is why I think that there may be an evil alien advanced intelligence that is making them screw up, making them dumber than they actually are. So we're committing mass suicide right now. The West, at least, is committing mass suicide. Well, the Green New Deal is dumb. It's all dumb. By the way, there's one thing about climate change. Let me just say one good thing about climate change.
I spoke to Creon, by the way.
Huh? There's one thing I learned. There's one thing I didn't know, which I have to go back. There is this intelligent man, and I have to go. Somebody sent a Russian guy from Moscow, sent this thing, and it's an American guy in national security, and but he's pointed out something that I didn't quite wasn't aware of. He's saying that because of all the plastic, garbage that we've put into the oceans, that what it's doing, it's decreasing the thermal conductivity of the ocean. So we have this hot volcanic magma in the interior of the Earth. So what has happened? What used to happen was that the oceans would be like a cooling mechanism. The heat would escape and would get out and sort of keep an equilibrium. And also that depends on, the wind patterns, all that stuff. And what's happening is that we've screwed that up. So the oceans are getting warmer because of the plastic insulator, heat insulator. And that will also increase volcanic activity. So I think there is something there. That makes sense to me as a physicist, what he's saying. And so that's a real danger. But the problem is, as far as I can tell, there's nothing we can do to prevent it unless, the only thing I can think of offhand, is that we have that we get some kind of bacteria, to destroy the plastic, some plastic eating bacteria, but how to get it into the ocean, it may be too late. So that could be a real catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's one of the very feasible sort of solutions of the possible solution set that people are proposed. So I think it's
the problem is we don't have time. The problem is we don't have time. The time's running out. And the problem is people are so incompetent, in the American government, and also Europe. It's not just America. It's the EU, it's the UK too. They're all stupid. They don't know. They're screwing up. So I think our only chance of survival is that these alien intelligences do come and intervene and show themselves explicitly. Otherwise, I think we're not going to make it. I hope to be wrong, of course. But that's the way I see it. That's the most likely scenario. I'm very pessimistic, and I hope to be proved wrong.
It's a good way of looking at it. So just to get back to sort of warp fusion reactors, how are they built? What's their purpose? And why is it that, they should be funded at all?
Well, I know you have to ask them, because I didn't know anything about it until a week ago.
Oh, wow.
They kept it secret. I didn't know. They didn't tell me about it. They kept it. They cite a paper I put on Academia Edu like 3 years ago. And if you ask Larry Lemke, you should talk to Larry Lemke, that they were working on this thing. It's a nuclear weapons laboratory. So they first now went public with it only in June of this year, so 2 months ago. And I found out about it just a week or 2 ago, 2 weeks ago maybe. I forget how long. So that fusion reactor has all kinds of. Well, let me see. I can. Do you have it? Do you have the thing? Do you have the thing available there? Hang on a minute. I can look at my other screen here. Warp reactor. It says the warp reactor concept.
Yeah, I can share it because I have it up too.
Yeah. Okay. So just projected. It says it promises order of magnitude increase in intense ion beam energies, and at a fraction of the cost over. Do you see it? There we go. There you go. All right. So there you go. And nuclear weapon. No, keep it on the abstract. Keep it on the abstract. I think that that summarizes right there. Can you make it bigger so we can see it? Just zoom. There we go. Yeah, leave it like that. That's good. So there we go. And my stuff is where the intersection of general relativity and quantum field theory. They have my stuff. That's where they have it. Do you want to go? Okay, scroll down to go to figure 26. Look for figure 26. Keep going. Keep going. Wait, go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Again. Keep going. Wait. See what? Okay, no. Go. Oh, there we go. And go up one more screen. Go up one more.
Figure 20.
No. But before, do the one right before it. Go up one more. Okay, right. No. Go. Yeah.
So
go,
are you still
the text? I want to get the text. There we go. Metric engineering right there. No. Okay, no. Okay, the next one. One more. Look for figure 26 in table 9. That's
So I found figure 26. That's right here.
Okay, yeah. Expand that. There, you see what it says? Figure 20. No. Go to.
Oh, there we go. Sarfatti S field, dimensionless.
Yeah, right. And zoom out just a little bit. Zoom out, not in. Zoom out. Okay, and go up. You'll get the text right below it. Figures, yeah, get the text. Our figures are in the way. Okay, no, you just missed it. There, figure 26. Just, okay, stop.
It's right here.
Yeah, right there, okay. Oh, missed.
That right there.
Keep it stable, yeah. Keep it right there. And then table 9, now get down to table 9.
Table 9.
Right there, that's table 9. That's table, no, you just missed it. Okay.
Right here?
No, there, that's table 9, that one. Yeah, all right. Look, these things.
Factor.
Yeah, but look, see, it's 10 to 32. 10 to 32. And from that number, and also they tell the volume, somewhere they put the volume is like, the volume is 1/10 millionth of a cubic meter. And look at the Einstein tensor. No, wait, no, it's the Einstein tensor. No. Look at where is the Einstein tensor? See, it's 3 times 10 to the 6, roughly. 3 times 10 to the 6. Well, you know what the Einstein tensor is of the Earth's, at the surface of the Earth, from the mass of the Earth? At the surface of the Earth, that number is 10 to the minus 22. This is in square meter, 10 minus, so that's 28 pounds. In other words, they're going to make a little warp bubble.
Yeah.
They're hoping to make a little warp bubble about 1/10 millionth of a cubic meter in size, tiny, okay, in which the curvature that they create there is going to be 28 powers of 10 stronger than the curvature at the surface of the Earth from the mass of the Earth, okay? And the G-force, if you were a little guy, in that bubble, you would feel the G-force of 16,000 times Earth's gravity. In other words, you would weigh 16,000 times, but it's still not a black hole. And even if it was a black hole, it would evaporate quickly by Hawking radiation. So that's what they're talking about.
Interesting. And so I'm hoping that we will, for the audience watching, we will dive in very deeply into what this Sarfatti scalar field factor is and some of the other things surrounding it, as well as the Sarfatti only space-time curvature, this S field.
Yeah, and then this guy Anderson, he added some other thing because the plasmas are circulating around, and that adds another term to it, which I don't.
So this is sort of
that's the machine, and it's 30 feet by 60 feet. It's big. It won't fit into a flying saucer. By the way, the interiors of the flying saucers are empty pretty much. So it's just everything's in the thin fuselage. The power system, the controls, the energy source, it's just in that thin little fuselage. It's empty inside. Pretty much there's just a little, like 3 little seats and the hand panels and the little aliens, the little gray robots. They control it with their brainwaves. Now, that's what Phil Corso says in his book, The Day After Roswell. It's what Rick Doty says, but it's also what a military friend of mine who actually was in these things, controlling, trying to figure them out. That's what he says, independently of Doty and independently of Corso. I have another reliable military source, so I know it's true. I mean, I know it's true to a high degree of probability.
Yeah, can I ask you this is somewhat of a more personal question, but so what are what are people's reactions, people that you might know, when you talk to them about some of these things in regards to aliens and in regards to sort of these craft that have been given to us or redeemed?
Sorry, I don't quite say it again. I didn't quite understand what you're asking.
Yeah, so I was saying, what are sort of the reactions of people in your own personal circle when you talk to them a little bit about the sort of crafts that have come back from the future, I guess, in some sense?
Well, most of my friends, they take it for granted. By the way, it's not just, I'm not the only one saying it. You talk to Frank Milburn. Frank Milburn, who's a British intelligence guy, Army, who also writes for the Mossad. He writes for the Begin Sadat Institute in Bar Ilan University in Israel. He's written 2 papers about this, and he's on video. You can see him on video saying he's talked to his intelligence friends, not just Jacques Sarfatti, he means his other friends, and they all think it's time travel from the future. In fact, it was Russell Targ, you hear Russell Targ back in 1973 saying that the UFOs are time machines back from the future. Back in 1973, at Stanford Research Institute with Hal Puthoff and Edgar Mitchell and Brendan. So this is not like it's a new idea. And I'm not the only one saying it. It's pretty much among, the people who are not stupid. And I've shown the physics of it. I mean, but the whole point is when George Kubin said the CIA wants to have these things fly, once you control gravity with small amounts of energy, that's time travel. There's because all that's involved in time travel is the curvature, is the steering, the tilting of the local, what's called the local wall of light. What Carlos Suarez says, smash the wall of light. I'm not smashing the wall of light. What I'm doing, I'm controlling the orientation of the light cone in four-dimensional space. I'm controlling it with small amounts of energy relative to the light cones outside the warp bubble. So, that way it's easy. I mean, in principle, conceptually, it's very easy. See, people have not had a simple, intuitive way to think about time travel until recently. Like Richard Feynman in his quantum electrodynamics, his diagram, Feynman's visual diagram technique enabled physicists to start doing calculations very quickly. Before, they just had like algebraic techniques and it took them like months, and Feynman could do something in like an hour that it took them 6 months to do, because he had this visual, it's like big data analysis, his way of visualizing data. So that's what I've done now. I've used it like a Feynman visualization trick, which I got from Roger Penrose. See, Roger Penrose has this picture of tilting the light cones as explaining general relativity curvature. And so Penrose is kind of like Richard Feynman, thinks visually. And so I realized as soon as I saw the Penrose pictures that they're just like the Feynman. The Penrose light cone pictures, the tilted light cone pictures, are to general relativity what Feynman's diagrams are to quantum electrodynamics. They allow you to see quickly how things work. And because of that, I claim that all these little models, Alcubierre warp drive and all these other warp drive metric things, there are things about them that are okay, but they're basically incorrect. There's serious defects in them. So there has to be all redone. And I'm beginning to do that now with this guy, Jose Rodal, who's a aeronautical engineer, PhD from MIT. And he's a serious person, as they say in the KGB. He's a serious person. He's able to, he's a good mathematician, and he does computer simulations, as I don't do.
So Jack, what are some of the applications for this warp fusion reactor that you think might be useful?
Well, that you have to just look at that. I don't know. I didn't design it. I mean, I haven't looked at. I just looked at parts where they talk about me. For that, you have to ask Michael Anderson. And by the way, Tim Ventura interviewed Michael Anderson on his thing, so you call him up and see if he'll do an interview. I mean, they're all just look at what did the abstract say. They're using it for. It says, game-changing direct application, and I want rate of magnetized liner inertial fusion devices. So they're talking about fusion, they're talking about fusion energy, right? Energy production. Advanced propulsion, that's my stuff. Multi-pulse compact flash X-ray, medical uses, sources for set, and also a way of testing for our nation's aging nuclear weapons stockpile. A way of seeing if we have all these aging nuclear weapons that are deteriorating. They may not even work. Or maybe they'll even be dangerous, or not. Maybe they could explode without those. I mean, if they get deteriorated. So apparently, the beams coming from this thing, I don't know. You have to ask him.
Gotcha.
Because I was not involved. I was not involved in it.
Right.
I was just as shocked as anybody to see my name in the paper. But you see what that means is the synchronicity here, that the nuclear weapons laboratory at Livermore is testing the Sarfatti equations that, by the way, Chris Bell and Louis Alzon said, well, bullshit, right? Eric Davis said, bullshit. Jack is a crackpot. Okay. And here Lawrence Livermore was doing, which, and by the way, Eric Davis published this paper He's an adjunct professor at Baylor University. It's like 10 guys from Baylor University. They published this paper, Computer Simulations on warp drives, and it turns out it's all a bunch of crap. It's all mistaken. They did a totally incompetent job. A totally incompetent job that this guy I know from MIT he's going to publish a paper about it. You know, he won't be as impolite as me, perhaps, but they're totally incompetent. So Eric Davis, I claim, is incompetent. He's second-class physicist, and he's the guy who's, you know, advising the government, the Pentagon, and the intelligence agencies on all this UFO stuff. So no wonder they don't know what's going on. They got a bunch of idiots there on every level. All right, so there we go.
So just to get back to some of some of your biography and your history, we're now at the point where you're in Pennsylvania with your girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, with Ira Einhorn, we go up to see Andrea Paharich. I go down to New York to see my mother. And my mother said, remember when this happened to you? She tells me I had all these weeks of phone calls which I had no memory of. Okay. And then we leave there, we go to San Francisco, and I meet Werner Erhard, and he sets me up in an apartment. And I'm part of the whole kind of Werner Erhard thing with Fred Allen Wolf. And then I meet Francis Ford Coppola through his wife. What happens when we're at this S training? It's there with Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin is with me, and Sterling Hayden, and all these guys from Hollywood, this April C celebrity training. And by that time, our book, Space, Time, and Beyond, comes out, and it's a hit. It's a big hit in Hollywood. And it's like 1 o'clock in the morning with the Jack Tar Hotel, this S training. And there's Ellie, I didn't know who she was. You know, so I see this woman carrying my book with Fred Allen Wolf and Bob Tobin's Space, Time, Beyond. The cover, it's like a big comic book. She's carrying it, and it's the wife of Francis Ford Coppola. And then she says, it's like 2 a.m. You know, we're all kind of jazzed, and all this, you know, it's like brainwashing. Everything else going on there, and so she takes us to her house, me and Fred, and we go to her house. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning on Broadway, 2805 Broadway. They don't own it anymore, so that's I can bet. It's, you know, house in Pacific Heights. And we go in, you know, give us Francis Coppola. She wakes up her husband, Francis Ford Coppola, comes down in his bathrobe. And says, Werner Erhard, he's a Hitler. He's a Hitler. He's grumbling. You know? It's like Hitler. So that's how I met Francis Coppola. And then, and then it was part of this whole North Beach scene. And okay, so it's now, at this point, let's see, there's late 70s, and I'm hanging out with Francis Coppola. And then Francis gives a party. Also, Uri Geller's coming in and out of San Francisco. And Francis, I guess it was a Christmas party. And Uri Geller's in town. So Francis tells me to invite Uri Geller to his house. And Spielberg's, and they're all there. You know, it's all Rat Pack, all the guys that Zekenis or whoever, all these, you know, the people who did Back from the Future. This is way before that. They were all at this big party. I come there with Uri Geller and Saul, Paul, and Fred, and also Jacques Vallée. Invited Jacques Vallée. That's how Jacques Vallée got connected with Hollywood to do the technical advisor for Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So I'm involved in all that stuff.
So you know Spielberg personally.
This is all being manipulated from the future. This is the Destiny Matrix, Back from the Future, right? What else is it? What else?
So do you know Spielberg personally?
What?
Do you know Spielberg personally?
No, I mean, I probably said hello to him, but I didn't even know back. You know, there's a lot of people milling around the party. But Jacques Vallée, through that, I don't know whether Jacques met him then or met him later, but it's because Jacques got connected with the Coppola Rat Pack. And Jacques writes about it. I think he did meet him there. It's in his journals. You know, just look at his journals. We'll have Jacques, see if he'll do an interview with you. But Jacques admits it. He says that, you know, I met you because of Jack Sarfatti. So, okay, so you see, this is all, there's too much Jungian synchronicity for this to be all random. This is being orchestrated, but it's not being orchestrated by idiots in the CIA who don't know, they don't know how to wipe their asses, pardon me, basically, metaphorically speaking. They don't know what's going on. They're clueless. There's a much higher intelligence that's manipulating them, manipulating us right now. I mean, Lawrence Livermore is suddenly testing the Sarfatti theory for 3 years. Come on. This is all evidence for time travel. Time
Jack,
travel is real. Ontological shock. Time travel. Okay. A lot of crazy people are talking about it, but it turns out it's real. I think. We'll see.
So what are some of the ways in which you think time travel might be possible? Because there's many sort of paths for that, no?
No. This is, if you look at they see that we have my diagram. I have a simple little picture of how that works with the light cones. Just if you could, what warp drive is changing the relative orientation of the local light cone of the ship relative to the light cones outside the warp bubble. And so doing that, you can go anywhere you want to go, anywhere when. You can travel through space-time in any way you want. There's only one way to do it. That's, manipulate. That's the equation that Lawrence Livermore is testing. It's not ambiguous. Conceptually, there's one way to do it. So Einstein's relativity, where you're controlling the coupling between the stress energy tensor that's creating the gravitational field and the gravitational field itself. If you can increase the strength of the coupling, you do whatever you want to do. Also, you reverse the sign of the coupling, and there's a way of doing that too. So
we'll deep dive into some of that stuff. I said we'll deep dive into some of that stuff next.
Yeah, but it's basically elementary algebra. It's not difficult. The mathematics of the basic mathematics is not difficult. The technology, how to make the materials that'll allow you to amplify the coupling, that's the problem. But we're seeing the technology is operational. That's what the Navy is seeing. That's what Commander Fravor and Ryan Graves and all these people are reporting. They see these things are flying around already, and they do it very easy. So it's not, I'm talking theoretically. The only reason, okay, you have to understand, as a physicist, as opposed to being a pure mathematician, I'm motivated to do this because of empirical information. We have the evidence. We have more evidence for flying saucers than we have for the Higgs boson at CERN. Okay, many of the big experiments they can't reproduce. I think there's only been one experiment showing the Higgs boson, right? It's at CERN. Is there anybody else who can do it? No. So all this about reproducibility, that's bullshit. And we have plenty of evidence for flying saucers over hundreds of years, thousands of years, and now it's all coming in. That's why the Pentagon has set up this thing. You see, there's a new website last night or yesterday. So it's all real. It's all real. So be prepared for a lot of ontological shock.
Yeah,
and most people are so stupid about science they don't know it. It doesn't mean anything to them anyway.
Well, Jack, one of the things with this is that it's much more than sort of flying saucers and members of another civilization. It sort of touches into some of the ways in which we perceive reality, which is why I like the way that you phrased it, an ontological shock.
Yeah, well, those are your words.
Yeah, well, I'll take credit for that then. But do you think there's going to be many ways in which people's personal beliefs and sort of framing of the world they live in is going to change over time in the next perhaps decade or so?
Well, okay, if they're not stupid, yes, but most people are stupid. I'm sorry to say, but I mean, just look around. I mean, the average of the how many people, how many billions do we have? 7 or 8 billion now. What's the population now? When I was a kid, it was 2 billion. Now it's what, 7 billion or 8 billion?
I think we're at like the 7.5, I think.
Okay, 7.5. So maybe there's I don't know, 10 million smart people in the whole world. How many? How many people are in Silicon Valley? How many scientists are there? Maybe 10 million at most. Is 100 million too high?
Yeah, that's too high. Yeah, 100 million.
Probably, so maybe a few tens of million can understand what we're talking about. How many people watch? Yeah, okay. How many people? I mean, a couple of hundred. So a couple of million. it's like that Kornbluth at a science fiction thing, the marching morons. Okay, so it's like there's a few million people out of few, like 1 in 100, maybe 1%, maybe less than 1%, are the people who run things, and the other people, I mean, they're nice people. They just want to have families, which is all good, and be productive and go to jobs and have a nice life. And so we have to, we're like the shepherds, and they're the sheep. Really, I mean, that's what it is. And sadly enough, that's why the democracy is not working here, because people, just can't deal with it. It's too technical now, and the people in charge are idiots. You look at Tucker Carlson the other day with this Adam guy he interviewed, and he said he was 35 years in Washington, and the elite in Washington, they're all living in their big mansions. They're all making money off the Ukraine war. They're building these giant mansions because the money that's going to Ukraine is really going back to the military industrial complex, and these guys are all getting rich. They're all, and they're vampires, because all these Ukrainian soldiers are being killed, and Russian and Ukrainian soldiers are being killed, so that guys in Washington, D.C. and there can get rich. That's what Tucker Carlson says, and he's there. He's moved out because he couldn't take it anymore.
Well, Jack, so, one of the problems with, and I agree with you in the idea that the military-industrial complex, especially here in the United States, has become a big issue around the world. But the issue that I find that many people are having difficulty solving is restructuring the incentives. How else would we sort of operate nation states is a big question.
I don't know. I'm not Henry Kissinger. I don't know. Well, and also we don't have time to do it. It's not going to be done because there's too many vested interests. We're going to have a disaster. I mean, right now, if you listen to McGregor and these guys, McGovern and Scott Ritter and Judge Napolitano, all these guys on YouTube. There was just this meeting now with BRIC, the BRIC, with the Russia, China, Brazil, India. They want to go off the petrodollar, and Saudi Arabia, because people are fed up with the United States with their policies. So there's a big rebellion happening.
Well, I mean, in many ways, I think there's some justifiable claims that have been made. Like, for example, that the U.S. sort of policy has weaponized the dollar in many ways. And so
people are getting fed up. People are getting fed up with the stupid, aggressive policies, I'm sorry to say, of my country and NATO. And NATO's going along. Germany is collapsing. They're self-destructing. And then they're saying Putin blew up his own pipeline. That's ridiculous. We blew up the pipeline. The northern pipeline. We blew it up. And
conspiracy.
I mean,
that's clearly a conspiracy.
America declared war on Germany. Germany economy is collapsing. It's all self-destructive. That's why I think it's evil ETs doing it, because how can we be so stupid? It's not in our interest. It's not even,
That must be the best.
I'm laughing, but it's a serious situation. This is much worse than the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is like a slow burn. This is a slow destruction. We're destroying ourselves, and eventually it's going to come to a head. It's all going to, it's going to be like the sun. It's going to happen very quickly, like an avalanche effect. Bang.
Well, one of the things that I'd love to get your take on is, what are your thoughts on sort of the emerging sort of blockchain and cryptocurrency ecosystem?
I don't know anything about it. I don't know. I'm not. Well, I'm the kind of guy who sells Apple stock right before it's going to shoot. So I'm not the kind of guy. I don't pay any attention to that. Right? I'm just sticking in the engine room on the warp drive physics right now. Okay, so I'm not the kind of guy. Creon, yes, Creon Levin. He knows that stuff.
Yeah, I don't. Creon.
It's all a big bubble anyway. The whole thing is going to. I think we're on the edge of the abyss. And I hope to be wrong, but my feeling is we're on the edge of the abyss. Everything's going to collapse, and probably before the election, things are going to happen. We only have a few months now. It could happen in weeks, and I hope to be proved wrong.
Jack,
apocalyptic Jeremiah here. I hope to be wrong.
So you've mentioned.
I'm not the only one saying it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But you mentioned this one thing quite a few times, and that I find very interesting that I'd love to dig deeper on, which is
But,
you said there is no government when asked the question about the US government. What did you
oh,
mean?
well, I mean, it's like a chicken without a head. I mean, we have a senile president. We have a senile McConnell is just as bad as Biden, maybe worse. And we have, Tucker Carlson, who's on the inside. Tucker Carlson says everybody running Washington, D.C. now, they're corrupt, they're stupid, they don't give a damn about the American workers, about the people, which is why Trump is so popular. With, the MAGA thing, and they're trying to make Trump supporters as domestic terrorists. They're the terrorists. It's all inverted. And as Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, says, this persecution of Trump and all these sham, show trials, false indictments against him. That's what the communists did in the Soviet Union. America is now the Soviet Union. Russia is not the Soviet Union anymore. America is the Soviet Union. That's why they hate Trump. That's why they hate Putin, because Putin's is a nationalist, is a white Christian nationalist now. So and we're the communists. We're the ones who are the tyrants. Who are, I mean, the people around Biden are trying to do anything to prevent Trump from becoming president again, because they know if Trump becomes president again, he's going to get rid of them all. He's going, especially now that he knows that they try to get him, he's going to get them. It's like a mafia war, right? So, and then what Tucker Carlson says, well, they did a fake impeachment. Well, first they had the fake dossier, then the fake impeachments, and now the fake indictments. What's next? Assassination. And Tucker Carlson says it to Trump. Listen, they're going to try. They did it to JFK and RFK. They're going to try to do it to Trump too. They'll stop at nothing. We're basically in a civil war right now. It's a civil war, a cultural, ideological civil war. Okay, and that's why I think that maybe it's the evil ETs have taken over the minds of the people in Washington around the Democrat Party, who are, and even the rhinos, not just the Democrats. It's what's his name, Mitt Romney, all these, a bunch of these Republicans who hate Trump, So that's the problem. We're in a very bad way right now. People should be afraid.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because some of the policy decisions made here in the US have very strong rippling effects throughout the rest of the world. And so it's very yeah. And so
that's why like 80 countries in BRIC, they're rebelling against the United States, the tyranny of the United States. I hate to say it, because I'm a patriot. I'm an American patriot. In fact, everybody voting for Trump is an American patriot, and the people against him, they're the terrorists in my book. And a lot of them don't even know what they're doing. They're stupid. They don't know history. They don't know what's going on. They don't know the history of what's happening in Ukraine. They don't know what happened in 2014. They don't know anything. They're just brainwashed by propaganda.
Yeah, and so Jeff, just to get back to sort of your biography again. So we're now sort of at the point where you're in Pennsylvania. You left. You've seen your mom.
I'm back in San Francisco. Yeah, no. I met all these Hollywood people.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, and then
Jacques Vallée. Yeah,
Jacques Vallée, who Jacques Vallée had already connected. He arranged the meetings in 1973 at SRI, but he didn't show up. So Jacques Vallée's back there in the background somehow. Mm-hmm. And but he's not that important. What's important is that I then meet the Reagan people. I become like the informal science advisor for the Institute of Contemporary Studies, set up by Brent Scowcroft and Cap Weinberger and Ed Meese and Milton Friedman, for when Reagan was the governor of California, to make him president of the United States. And he becomes president of the United States. And then in the background, I play a role behind the scenes in setting up the Strategic Defense Initiative, supporting Edward Teller. And that's a whole story. We don't try to go into all the details of it, but it's in my book, it's in my book, Destiny Matrix, and it's in so some of it is in Gladstone's book, The Great Race. And at that point, also, we're in contact with the Russians, back channel with the Russians in Moscow. And basically, then that leads to the Gorbachev and the fall of the Soviet Union. It's the 90s. Let me put this quick run through. And then toward the end of the 90s, you get involved with this guy, Joe Firmage, who's now being sued for $25 million for a phony Ponzi scheme in Utah. Joe Firmage, who is he's like a great-great-grandson of Joseph Smith. He's a Mitt Romney. He's a Mormon. And in 2000, he made $25 million in U.S. Web, beginning of the internet. And he's into UFOs, flying saucers. So he sets up what's called the International Space Science Organization, ISSO. And I get Creon Levitt. I arranged for Creon Levitt to take a leave from NASA to run the ISSO in San Francisco, and Hal Puthoff is part of it, and Bernie Hayes, all these guys. Jacques Vallée is part of it. It was good. And then, but what happens is then that's right before the bubble. So a combination of the bubble with the collapse, it lasted like 2 years. And also Joe himself, sadly, he was only 28 years old then, but he was, he's a crackpot. He's a smart guy. He knew more physics than we know, and he didn't pay attention to what we're telling him. So he blew a lot of money on crackpots. Okay, and there's more. I don't want to get into his private life too much, so I won't say. There's more I could say, but I'm not going to. And so that thing failed. It lasted about 2 years. And we tested a bunch of things, and then all these schemes, they're all crackpot. All this over unity nonsense, the magnetic this and that. It was bullshit. None of it worked. And I didn't really have the idea. So then what happened was finally around 2010, somehow I got wind of the metamaterials, and I don't really, to tell you the truth, I don't know how I got the idea. But by 2011, I was working with Creon and Larry Lemke and General Pete Warden, who was the head of NASA Ames, invited me to Orlando to this DARPA NASA thing. And by that time, I already had the basic idea. I gave a paper, you can see it's online, Low Power Warp Drive, how metamaterials can be used to explain the flying source of warp drive. And it's all the basic ideas are there. I've since refined it, but it's basically there. So by 2011, and tell you the truth, I don't remember how I got the idea. That's interesting, because I'm being programmed. I got the idea because in my subconscious for it. Okay, how I got the idea, because the Tic Tacs, they're telling me, it bubbles up out of my subconscious. That's why. I'm just a psychic. I'm just a remote viewer, like Russell Targ. But I'm remote viewing. No, seriously. You see, most of these channelers, they don't know any physics, so they just channel bullshit. It's word sound, doesn't mean anything. But some of us physicists, we get the information. They're saying, I'm creating them because they're telling me how to create them. It's that time travel thing. Except it's not a paradox. It's the way the world works. What they call it, I forget what the self-creation paradox. But it's not a paradox. It's actually, according to Igor Novikov, who works with Kip Thorne, if he's still alive, it's what's called a globally self-consistent. It's called the Novikov self-consistency principle. So I'm just a channel. I'm just a messenger. So all this physics that's coming out is because when I was a kid, 1953, all right, they told me I was going to create them because subconsciously I was programmed. Those 3 weeks of phone calls that my mother, and I don't even remember, all the information I'm coming out with now is from them, not from me. I'm humble. I'm a humble guy. I don't know anything. I'm just a scribe. I just write it down like Mozart. Just write it. And so now the thing is, you'd say, well, Sarfatti's obviously crazy, certifiable. Put him in a straitjacket, call 5150 on him, put him in the nut house. Except Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, they're using the equations that I was channeling. And I remember back in the 70s, back in the primitive, in the dark ages, how all these psychics would come, and actually guys from the intelligence agency, they said, hey, there's this guy, he's channeling information. And, can you tell us, is there anything real about this? And it was all bullshit, it was all nothing. Okay? Because these guys, they were not, they didn't know anything. But I was trained by Hans Bethe, and guys built, I have a PhD, from an Ivy League guy, MI6 says, Jack, you're in the thick of it, psychic war. So here we go. All right. So I'm claiming the reason I don't remember how I got the idea is because, it just appeared in my consciousness. In fact, right now, even when I'm doing things, I get these ideas. Bang, there's an equation. Just, bubbles up into my stream of consciousness, right?
Some of the best ideas.
So that's it.
Some of the best
ontological stuff. So now I dare anybody to debate me on this topic.
Yeah, so we're certainly going to have to set that up at some point. Have you looked into I've been some correspondence with Deep about this, Deep Prasad, his company GENMAT, Generative Materials. Yeah. And so what are your thoughts on
we follow each other on Twitter. Deep, he should call me up and we should have a conversation. Yeah. What they have to do, they have to find a high electrical permittivity and low and high. Large electrical permittivity and close to zero magnetic permeability. Very diamagnetic, a very big dielectric response, electrical dielectric response, and a diamagnetic response. And that should, according to the equation that they want to test at Lawrence Livermore, that will increase the coupling between electromagnetic field and the gravity field. So, so he has to find we're looking for resonances in metamaterials, but it's got to be pumped like a laser. It's what's called non-equilibrium physics, not equilibrium. There's some, So that's a whole, in other words, that's the big problem. The big problem is it's a condensed matter problem of great complexity where you need artificial intelligence, like what he's trying to do, and to design a material that'll do it. However, since I know we have the intact sources, we do have them. Everything Grush says is correct. So if we were given that material, the real material, if those idiots in the Pentagon, and even maybe that's why they want to become to Russia, maybe they, because Russia has some of these craft too, I'm told. So the point is this. Okay, now with modern day instruments, they should be able to reverse engineer the material now. They don't need me for that because I'm not a condensed matter physicist anyway. So maybe they have that material, but then they have to then just figure out what frequencies to use to pump it to get it to activate so that it increases the coupling. The Einstein coupling makes much bigger. The S field. In other words, you want an S field like 10 to 32, like what they get. You want the same kind of S field that the Lawrence Livermore is getting, but you don't want it in this big hot reactor. That's no good. It's got to be in a cold little, like a little aluminum foil metasurface, layered metasurface. Is very thin, very light. That the material is like a dirigible almost.
Yeah. So you spoken a bit about the sort of meta atom lattices that be inside this material. What do you mean by meta atoms? So what are meta atoms?
Go on Wikipedia. What a meta material is. It's a bunch of artificial atoms. They could be quantum dots, trapped ion. They're artificial atoms, little cavities, little like quantum dots. Just look what quantum dots are, and they're lattices of them. And then, it's the way you arrange the lattice, the structure of the lattice, that gives it its metamaterial properties and gives it these. You can engineer the electromagnetic dielectric response and the magnetic permeability response to these things. It's a complicated thing.
Right. I just sort of wanted you to give that explanation because people sometimes might assume that metamaterials are sort of a novel creation, but they've been around for quite some time now.
Well, not that much. I mean, I think it was only about 30 years, right? Some Russian guy, some guy in Russia got the idea. The first paper, I forget his name, with a V. Yeah.
Right. But the idea of using them for propulsion,
Oh
certainly,
no, that's me. I'm the only. That's me. That's me in 2010.
yeah. So that's certainly a novel idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And
Very,
but I'm the one who made the connection. And then it's funny that Eric Davis was at this meeting and he tried to suppress my information, which is interesting. He tried to suppress it, even though later the Hal Puthoff then came out. See, Hal Puthoff then years after I gave this talk, they talk about the metamaterials, but they never show how the metamaterial explains the physics of propulsion. They don't. Well, they don't because they don't know it. They have no equations for it. That's what I have. That's what Lawrence Livermore is doing. So they basically stole my idea without giving me credit. That's what I'm claiming.
right. So they simply discussed in very vague terms.
Yeah, just look at Hal Puthoff's lectures. He's on video lectures with this whole thing, and same with Eric Davis, all of them, and Louis Elizondo. And then they're suppressing my information. It's very weird what's going on, I must say. Yeah.
Well, it's weird, but also it makes some sense because if your information was correct information, it sort of makes sense why they'd want to suppress it. You'd let, very.
That's giving them a lot of credit for being intelligent. So far, I find them very stupid. I hope to be wrong. I hope they are more intelligent than they appear to me to be.
Right.
In a way, I'm kind of egging them on, right? I'm sort of like, okay.
Understood. Yeah. Message received.
Yeah, that we should debate. They're afraid. Every one of them is afraid to debate me. They're all afraid of me.
Well, Jack, I think that makes sense to me because you're a theoretical physicist. You have an incredible background. You're extremely literate, and so I don't blame them for being afraid to debate you.
No. But it means they're hiding something. That they're fundamentally intellectually dishonest, and that's bad for America. That's bad for science. Science is supposed to be. See, you could be mistaken. You could be wrong. You could be mistaken in your views, but then you have to admit it. And even Eric Weinstein. Eric Weinstein's a smart guy. He knows. Eric Weinstein knows a lot of mathematics. But he's what Einstein would call an intelligent fool. He makes things that is, when he's trying to explain UFOs, he goes 7 times. His scheme is too complex and doesn't have to be that complex. But he got upset. He's afraid to debate me because I criticized his theory. So what he should do, we should meet in public like this on the blackboard, go here and there, and see who's wrong. Maybe he's right, maybe I'm wrong. But you see, they're afraid of confrontation. But when I was at Cornell, everything was confrontation. What real scientists do, Richard Feynman, you don't have to be angry at it, you don't have to be rude. Wheel was very polite, but fine. I mean, everybody's, you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. Right? Yeah, you're fine. You have creative confrontation. See, and they're afraid to do that. They're snowflakes. They're afraid that they have to be in this safe space. And that's bad. That's very bad for science.
That's probably the one thing that I enjoy most about you is that authenticity, because you don't see that much today.
No, because they're all wimps. They're all like, there's something wrong with these people. It's a decline of intelligence. I know it's a decline. Maybe it's the effect of these evil ETs. This whole woke thing, and it's very bad. It's a national security. It is the national security issue. The collapse of intelligence, and yet we see, the technology, certain parts of technology of the artificial intelligence, experimental physics, there's still good work being done, but in very narrow specialties. There are very few people who can see the big picture. So,
well, this is sort of where artificial intelligence might give a helping hand in aggregating, because we now live in an era where there's subfields to fields, and there's too much information, too many papers to keep track of.
Oh yeah.
And so AI can help aggregate and summarize some of that information for people.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to experiment with that myself because there's too many papers. I can't read all these papers. Literally, there are like a dozen pretty good papers almost every day coming out in experimental stuff. In condensed matter physics, where it's at.
Yeah.
But I can't digest them. There is still a lot of good work being done in physics. Not being done in high energy physics. Not being done so much in general relativity anymore, but it is being done in condensed matter, which is what we need to build these, machines.
Right. And so, it's somewhat very difficult to keep track of the state of the art, and especially have this sort of broad overview of multiple disciplines all at once.
Yes.
So I think so it's incredible that it's sort of emerging at a time in which it's most critical, which I think is very good. And so you've been using it quite a bit yourself?
Not quite a bit. I'm just like, I don't really know how to use it, but there's this one guy, Serge, he's supposed to be doing things for me. Somebody hasn't done it. I've used it. I'm on chat. What is that? GPT, In fact, I'm paying Sam Altman $20 a month, but so far his stuff isn't that good. And by the way, he's my next door neighbor, Sam Altman. So, we're at the beginning stages trying to see, like I know Siri and Apple Siri, it's very stupid. It's a very bad artificial intelligence. But what we need is a simple AI interface that will take a paper on the archive and summarize it, but also able to sort of see the math. And apparently they can do the words, but they can't do the math very well. And that's the problem. So the AI is not intelligent enough yet in terms of the mathematics.
No, not at all.
That's where the humans have to come.
Yeah, it's certainly not at that stage yet. And so, Jacques, one of the other things that I think would be interesting before we sort of wrap up the biography segment of our conversation, and then in the next episode move into some of the more technical and physics-based conversation, is your thoughts on sort of the narrative that started in 2017. Do you feel as if talking about UFOs just increases distrust in government rather than building it?
The distrust in government is so great and so well justified that UFOs have no effect on it already. Everybody who supported Trump distrusts the government, and most of the people, the Democrats, the left, they distrust the government. Everybody distrusts the government. Distrusting the government is now a bipartisan issue, but for different opposite reasons, right?
Yeah.
So that's not the UFO. No, if anything, UFO is the opposite. UFOs, because if you looked at the congressional thing, you had AOC, Cortez, whatever. She's a good-looking woman, girl, but she's, actually, she was. I was actually impressed with her. She actually asked pretty good questions to Grouch and Frame. She was pretty good on it. She's not as dumb as people think, but she's extreme left, communist, basically, And then the other guys, Matt Gaetz, so both extremes, they were both together on that. So if anything, UFOs will have just the opposite. That's bipartisan. So it's just the opposite effect. But it may be too little, too late. I have a feeling it's too late because we may be at war. I mean, what Tucker Carlson and other people are saying is that, see, right now they're trying to destroy Donald Trump. And you see what the blacks now, those are the blacks in the hood. Now that Trump has, had to do the perp walk, being arrested in Georgia, all these guys in the black and all these black guys who've been in prison out, they say, hey, Trump is our bro now, man. The hood, you indict, we unite. Okay, you indict, we. So a lot of these blacks are coming over to Trump. Okay. And it's it's like it's like the Godfather, it's like a mafia war. You have the guy, the Biden is a corrupt, the organized crime family. The Pelosi, Biden, Weinstein, Newsom, all these guys on the Democrat, that they're organized crime. They're organized crime, no question of it. But you have the Trump side. So it's gang warfare. It's really what it is right now. It's gang warfare. So now they're trying to get rid of Trump. If he escapes indictment, I mean, if he wins legally, they're going to try to kill him. No question, they're going to try to assassinate him like they did. Yeah, that's what I think is going to. I mean, it's not just me. It's Tucker Carlson said it, and so did these other guys. So we're in a real war here. And now Biden knows he's guilty as hell. We all know he's guilty as hell. He knows it. So now is an act of desperation. What Tucker Carlson and other people are saying is that in order to prevent the election, in order to prevent a Trump landslide, they'll put boots on the ground in Ukraine, something like the Tonkin Gulf, and World War III to stop the election. Regardless, this could happen. We have a nuclear war, and so we're at a very unstable, dangerous situation. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, now the many worlds of like Philip Dick, the man in the high castle. So in one world we all get killed, in one world we survive. Who knows what's going to happen? But right now, people should be very afraid because things are very unstable. There's no faith in the American government. It's not just the Americans. It's happening in the EU too. The French, the Germans are going to rebel. I mean, they're going. The German economy is imploding because of the Nord Stream pipeline that we did, almost for sure. What's his name? That journalist, I forget his name. That good journalist. It's Cy Hirschberg or something like that. So things are in chaos.
Why would you think that the U.S. blew up the pipelines?
To blame it on Putin. Propaganda. People believe anything. They're so stupid. Even people I care about. They believe the New York Times. You believe the New York Times, you're an idiot. The Washington Post, you're an idiot. Unfortunately, I subscribe to London Times. They're also, it's all propaganda. It's like living. It's Pravda. It's Stalin is like living in Stalin's Soviet Union in the United States now. It's all moved over here, and in the EU, we have we don't have a free press anymore. In any case, people know it. That's why people are going to the internet and these little podcasts, stuff like that. So there's been a complete collapse of faith in our basic institutions, in the government, in academia, in Hollywood, in the free press, the fourth estate. Everything is in a state of collapse. It's the decline and fall of Western civilization, and whether we will arise from the ashes and resurrect, I don't know.
Yeah.
So on that happy note,
yes, I think that you put that pretty well. And Jack, one of the things that I like to ask people, and we'll be having episode 4 coming out soon in regards to deep equations, because I'm sure people want to get into the
let's just get into the physics next.
Into the nuts and bolts. But one of the questions that I love asking people is, what's the single most valuable idea on the planet in this moment in time, in your belief?
Oh, time travel. Control of gravity, just what I'm doing, but the Sarfatti equation, time travel. Low energy control of gravity. That's it. With that, we can go to the exoplanets. We can maybe save billions of people from dying, through stargates. It's like making Star Trek real. The equation that Lawrence Livermore. What else is there? Everything else is subsidiary. It'd be good to cure cancer. So we're doing that. But in terms of the physical science, it's what Jacques Sarfatti is doing, and it's because Jacques Sarfatti's been, I'm channeling it. What these higher intelligences are telling me what to do. That's it. That's the story. Take it or leave it.
Well, you heard it here. Take it or leave it. On that note, Admiral Jacques Sarfatti, it's been, again, another honor for you gracing me with your time, and conversations with you are always just extremely interesting to me. And to the audience, thank you for watching this far. Good night.
See you next week. Okay, ciao.